You are now tuned into the 2-Minute Warning, a live stream community conversation pertaining to social and political issues and how we can collectively resolve them. Powered by the Westside Gazette.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2-Minute Warning. My name is David Wright, and I'm sitting in for our host tonight, Mr. Perry Busby. Perry, we wish you well, man. Hope you feel better and come back to us real soon here. But again, the 2-Minute Warning is brought to you by none only than the Westside Gazette, the biggest, the baddest, the boldest Black-owned newspaper here in the South Florida area. And again, we're the social political live stream here tonight. And wow, what an exciting show we have for you. None other than the editor of the Westside Gazette, my dear brother, Mr. Bobby Henry. How are you, sir?
You know, I'm terrific and getting better in spite of this crazy weather we have. And you know something, David? We can equate what's happening in our weather to what's going on in our political arena, if you will.
Ooh.
Yeah, man. We've had some torrential downpours, and you and I were discussing that we have never seen anything like this in either of our lives. So it is. I mean, it is something else.
Record breaking,
man. I know you were sharing with me that you were getting calls from all across the country and from even some different parts of the world. I too have gotten some calls in Texas to inquire about how are we and how are we weathering this storm. I must admit, man, this is like something I've never seen before. So I know you were saying,
absolutely. You know, we had something similar a
Mhm.
few years ago. I think that was back in the 80s. But right now, what we're seeing is really unprecedented. 25 plus inches of rain in less than a 24-hour period. Meteorologists are saying, you know, we've kind of climaxed a third of our annual rainfall in just one day, 8 hours. So that is truly historic.
Yeah. Now, help me understand this. You're saying that the meteorologists are saying that we have gotten a third of our annual rainfall in less than 24 hours?
Yes.
Wow, man. So that explains when I go outside of my door, that canal behind my house is now a part of my landscape.
Yeah.
Is that man? I tell you.
Yes. And normally, like we know, we have our rainy seasons, and
Mhm.
it is spread it out throughout the year. We have those torrential summer downpours as well after the rainy season, and that
Mhm.
also contributes to our rainfall, our annual rainfall.
Mhm.
But this is truly monumental to consume this
Mhm.
much liquid sunshine
Sunshine. Yeah.
at one time.
And nowhere to go. Ariel, can you put up a couple of the photos? Let's see if we can let our audience see what we're talking about. Wow.
Yeah, that's near our airport. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you've been listening to any of the news, the airport's been shut down for the last 24 hours due to all of this.
Hmm.
Wow. And then what
That.
they're alluding to is that the rainfall, the flooding brings a lot of debris, and it can get into the engines and the braking systems and the integral parts of the planes. So it's just not safe at all.
Okay. Now this shot here is around our office. That is normally a vacant lot, and that water is about 3 to 4 feet deep. Uh,
Mhm. Did I see some bass
hmm.
jumping over there?
You might have. Hmm.
Mullets. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
mullets.
Mullets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
This is real. This is real.
Now, if you take a look at this shot, this is a night shot. All those cars are in the middle. I think is that Broward Boulevard or either Sunrise. All those cars are in that has impeded the flow of traffic on a major highway. All those cars are empty. There's nobody in
Mm,
them.
mm.
They had to abandon and leaving them. So.
Wow. Well, that says
Wow.
a lot about what's going on in our weather system,
Yeah.
and I guess the same is in the political system today.
That's
Our topic today
mm-hmm.
is navigating the political minefields and
Mm-hmm.
the collateral consequences.
Collateral consequence.
Yes.
And don't let's not confuse this with friendly fire. This is uh, uh, point blank at you in your face, trying to do you in. Um, I know I was listening to and taking some stories into account. Our governor, who's no stranger to asinine comments or situations, uh, uh, has put into law what 6 days for abortions. So this man is out of control totally. So yeah, that's one thing.
Well, it is said that he's more than likely going to sign this new bill that was
Hmm.
just passed last night. Well, tonight. So,
Tonight.
yeah, we are in this. How can I call it a power struggle? It seems when folks get in office, it's beholding to those a lot of people that don't look like us to really flex their power, to want to make sure that people understand who has the power and strictly what their agenda is in reference to how they're going to use their power. But we've all, African Americans, when we hear this abortion uh, policy, and we understand the birth rate of certain ethnicities, we kind of have to understand, I guess, why we're seeing this type of muscle being flexed.
And but again, David, there's nothing new under the sun. And reading that great book, the Bible, and especially the book of Kings, it talks about situations such as this. I mean, one king goes out, his son comes in, and his son does more damage than what he did, but he did it based upon his friends that were around him. And if we look at DeSantis and Trump and some of those other ill-minded individuals, they are doing what they're doing because of those that they're surrounded with. When we begin to pick off those that hold them up, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
you'll begin to see the real person,
Mm-hmm.
as in Donald Duck Trump. His people are falling off, and you see how even that clip when he came into the courtroom and nobody held the door for him. I mean, it's the small
Mm-hmm. The little
things
things.
the little things that point to the downfall
Mm-hmm.
of those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay.
It's interesting you should say that, and
Hmm.
when you bring up that book of Kings, and so many great books there, Second Samuel's, but we see a lot of those kings that were good,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then we
Hmm.
see their offsprings come in and turn it
Totally off their
around,
mind. Yeah.
turn it around.
Yeah. Okay. I see our
So,
technical producer David is
uh-huh.
is is is, is saying that we have some guests.
Oh wow, that's great.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
great.
Hmm.
Yeah, so tonight, we have a lineup. Again, the theme for the show is navigating political minefields and cultivating and the collateral uh, consequences. And slated for tonight's show, we have none other than our guest, Sandra Cherfrere, Esquire, our attorney,
Hmm.
who's no stranger to the 2 minute warning. Matter of fact, she's probably been on it just as many times as I have. I love my dear sister. She is awesome, awesome individual, passionate and loving. And when it comes to our, uh, our women's rights, when it comes to
Hmm.
humans' rights,
Children. Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
if she's holding off in the waiting room, do we need to go ahead and bring her on?
Let's do it because I think she has another engagement she has to get to. She's teaching a class tonight.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Absolutely.
good evening.
Hello,
How
Good
y'all
evening.
counselor.
Good
doing?
evening. All right. All right. All right.
I was like, who are
Uh,
they
Listen.
talking about? They can't be talking about me now.
why? Why? Don't run now.
Well, you know we love you on the 2 minute warning.
That's a nice way of saying what I do.
That's good, Sandra. That's
okay.
good.
So the raising hell part, we can leave. Don't leave that out either.
Don't leave that out.
No. We can't. And Lord knows.
Nice.
Yeah. We need it.
Passionately raise hell. All right.
Passionately.
That's right. I do it passionately.
So, attorney, tell us, give us your perspective of what is transpiring with this political landscape that we're seeing right now.
All right. So
some of it, yeah.
So this is so what we're seeing right now is Democrats deciding to stay home. Just the voters, the people who should vote, but also we saw like the Democratic candidates not giving them a reason to leave their house, right? They didn't give them a reason to leave. They just kept telling people like they just kept saying those other people suck, so vote for us, right? And that wasn't enough, and they were like, no, I ain't leaving my house for that. Gas is high, or whatever. They were like, nope, I'm not leaving my house just because you telling me this other person sucked. You need to tell me what you could do. And since they did it, people stayed home, and so now we have the Florida House and the Florida Senate with a super majority. So whatever they want to do, they're gonna do, and that's all it comes down to it. Like there's no ifs and buts about it. Whatever they want to do, whatever DeSantis tell them to pass, they're gonna absolutely pass it. And so hopefully, what this does at least is that it more than motivates, it just kind of kick those folks in the rear end to do something different in 24. Because at the very least, I don't think they're necessarily in a position to flip both of those houses, but at least get enough people in there that they don't have a super majority and they can't just just do whatever they want whenever they feel like it, and maybe by then some of these things they can roll back some of the things that's happening. But this really is about Democrats just most of their messaging was like, they suck, can't you see it, vote for us, and that ain't work. So hopefully they don't try that again.
So obviously that didn't get them out, right? But you're saying you feel like in Florida there's a chance that the Democrats can at some point make some headway, make some advantage?
No, they absolutely can make headway because it's enough crazy stuff that's happening that if they really Democrats really take the time to tell people about the issues for real, and they'll be like, well, you see what they did, like your daddy was sick and he couldn't go to the hospital and couldn't afford the deductible because they won't take the ACA money, right? They want to just call it Obamacare, make you hate it, and not let you know that it's really health insurance that can help you. So they talk about them. You could also say, well, you see how your mortgage payments just went up because whatever the insurance companies want, the governor tell them they can have it. So now you got $500, $700, $800 more you're paying every month on your mortgage, and that's because the governor lets them do what they want. But if you have somebody in there like a Democrat that's going to at least say no to it, maybe your mortgage payment won't go up another $700 or $800 in the next 2 years, right? Because they ain't sitting whatever they ask for, they got them. Your utility bills, the price of groceries. These are real life things that's happening to real life people that you don't gotta get into. The Republicans, you don't gotta get into that. You be like, tell me, isn't this what's happening in your life? And you know how you stop that? Explain it to them, and then they'll be like, you know what? The fact that my mortgage went up $700 and I could barely pay it when it was less than that, yeah, that's a reason for me to come out and vote for somebody who can make that kind of change in my life. And that's what they need to do instead of talking about what the other people didn't do, can't do, won't do, all that. Tell me what you gonna do when you get there.
Right. No, and Sandra, you bring up a great point. The messaging. The messaging was not on point. It was not geared to the common person. They were the message was above our heads.
Right.
And it's hard to get my attention when I'm hungry and I don't have a job or trying to find a place to stay and the rent is going sky high. I can't. So you're talking about some other stuff. I can't hear you. So I agree with you 100% that
I'm sorry, Bobby. What messaging?
Oh, see now. Okay, now we really talking.
They didn't even say nothing.
No, they didn't say nothing. Well, I see your lips moving, but I can't hear a word you're saying. You know, so I understand.
And then you know, the kind of things that they did want to talk about, like, and I'm not gonna, you know, I don't want to get into that because I don't need nobody coming for me neither, right? But you know, but some of the things that they did want to talk about,
I got your
like,
back.
I don't care about that. You know, like they really were talking about things that people truly didn't care about because it didn't have no effect on them for real, right? You know what I'm saying? Like when you're talking to like some 50-year-old women, and not to say that we don't care about reproductive rights, we absolutely do, but ain't they about to have no kids right now? You know what I'm saying? Like that's just not happening. So you know, but if you telling me about insurance, you know, like if we don't pay attention to who the, you know, the ag commissioner and those people are, they're gonna do things to really affect my life. I would want to hear that, and I would be like, no, I should have voted for Adam. You know what I'm saying? Instead of not voting at all, I just picked the people who I knew, skipped that, you know, didn't vote for this person at all, even, you know, even though it matters, you know. So they didn't talk about those things. They were talking about issues that, yeah, you know, they are things that people worry about, but a lot of folks, it wasn't necessarily their thing, right? It just really wasn't, you know.
It seems when you mention that, when you talk about, okay, we're gonna skate on some thin ice here for a moment, but when you talk about the reproductive rights, when you talk about you know, Roe versus Wade and all that stuff, you know, it's for some in the barbershop and beauty parlors who are talking on the street corners, that has nothing to do with black folk. You know, you're trying to not allow the browning of America to happen. You're gonna say that woman gonna have a baby, whether she's raped, whether it's incest, whatever it is, she's gonna have that baby. You know, so there's some thin lines and some fine areas that they're trying to message on, but it's not getting across to the people that need to hear it. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the thing. So even if they, and we're calling it reproductive rights because really that's what it is, and that's how they should have had the conversation, right? You know, they were having a conversation mainly on abortion because that's a trigger for some other folks. But the other things they don't talk about, like if someone has an ectopic pregnancy, right, which people understand, and they're like, they didn't even want you to deal with that. I'm like, but that'll kill the lady if you don't deal with it, right? So if they had that part of the conversation, people would understand it, right? The other thing too is like some people are miscarrying, right? If you had like fertility treatments, for example, you know, you see the doctor fairly often, they may realize that your pregnancy isn't viable, and they can say, you know what, this pregnancy isn't going to succeed, so we can go do a DNC, which is a medical procedure, right, that you need to do because you're basically carrying fetuses that are not viable. Some people can understand that because, you know, they might have had that situation, but they didn't talk about that part. Instead, what those Republicans want you to do is just walk around, and one day you walking down the street, you might just start bleeding and you don't know when, as opposed to letting your doctor make a decision, a health decision for you. So if they had, you know, presented that information in that way, someone else could have probably like, you know what, my cousin went through that. Yeah, I remember when that happened. There's another lady, I think it was either Texas or Oklahoma, that had a fetus that had no brain, right? And they wanted her to carry that baby to term. Like if you told somebody that, they'd be like, what? They can relate to that, as opposed to when you only want to message it as abortion. That you know, you're not gonna get all black folks on board. And then you know, especially since we know the church, you know, y'all doing so to the post to get the church folks out. That ain't nothing to be telling no church folks to like leave their house to go vote on. That's not, that ain't what they trying to hear. And that's just the reality.
That's right. Hold that point for a minute, Sandra. They've actually, I think our other guests are in the back there. You want to bring?
Absolutely. We want to really expand this conversation, and I think we have our dear doctor hanging out backstage with us. Another person that has frequented the 2-minute warning, no stranger here, native Floridian, none other than Dr. Nadine Hankerson. Now, Nadine is a native of South Florida. This is my homegirl. We grew up over in the same neighborhood, so
same church.
We go way back. Nadine, I can say so much because Doc, you got so many degrees and you've been all over the world and you've done various things throughout the community. But I just want to open it up and let you share with our listening audience exactly who you are, what you got going on right now.
Well, currently, as you know, I ran for office. I did not win the seat for the city of Fort Lauderdale, and it was okay. I truly understand and write a lot about the theory of elusibility. And elusibility is something that all individuals must be prepared sometime in their life to face the loss of something. But it does not matter if you lose the race. It's how much you do once you get up and move forward. And
Mhm.
a lot of us in this past race, I haven't seen them anymore.
Mhm.
It's been quiet. I've gone to a lot of the meetings that are held from a government standpoint, from the county to the city, and all of these people that have been in the race. Now they sound like crickets.
Mm.
You can barely hear voices speaking out on behalf of what is a problem here in
Mm.
Broward County and the state is we don't want to talk about white supremacy system culture.
Mm.
Mhm.
And as long as we continue to be afraid to speak out on behalf of the issues of racism that is affecting us from the resource standpoints, from all aspects of our life, if we're not willing to have real, true dialogue on how it makes us feel in our community, our own black on black victimization, our churches who ain't doing nothing, and some of these other folks that are out there that we keep picking to represent us, but yet we are not making any progress along the way. We have to begin to stand up and say it's time.
Okay, so
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, if
mm,
I can just jump in here real quick, within our own party system, Dr. Hankerson, it's been said so many times that when our young people want to volunteer and go and support the Democratic Party, that they feel like they're being pushed aside or just marginalized to the degree that, well, we don't really need your help, or y'all can just stand over there in the corner. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think people of color have to one understand that organizing is what wins the game. That is the nature of politics. So maybe we may need to begin looking at what does a third party really look like in America?
mm,
Will that third party entity
mm,
really begin to help us? So until we began looking at other avenues, because black folks once upon a time were Republicans, black folks now, after the civil rights movement, moved towards the Democratic Party. Well, can a true third party work for us in
mhm.
America? So maybe
Well,
those are some things that we have to begin looking at, even in our own local politics. You know, we've been fighting under this a single member district. It ain't work. You got
Mhm.
one vote. They don't like. They let you scramble around and say all kind of foolishness and keep talking, and they vote just the way they want to. You can't win with one vote.
Mhm.
So
Mm-mm.
we have to begin to take a look at the math. Let's look at the Pythagorean theorem on this one, and
Okay.
then begin moving ahead to say how can we make it equal this for us and feel good about us having housing and us having businesses that we can go to the bank and get money, and how do we create these entities so that we move forward in our communities, that we can have a shared responsibility for humanity. So I'm working
Okay.
hard continuously
Okay.
to try to put forth and have some discussion about those issues.
You know, you said something, and I'm reminded of 1920 in Ocoee, Florida, on election day. There was one of the biggest massacres that occurred in the state of Florida, well, almost in the whole United States at the time, and it happened on election day. When black folk who were trying to register to vote in the Republican Party, they had this massacre. So so there's nothing new about disenfranchised, even through murder and burning down towns. Now you also, David, you mentioned young folk. Now
Mm-hmm.
our other guest who's backstage, I'm gonna bring him on, is from Memphis, Tennessee, and we know what is happening right now in Tennessee,
Mhm.
Nashville, and Memphis. And we know what happened before times with Dr. King. So I want to bring on one of the publishers in the NNPA, the Memphis Star News, Trennie Williams. So if we can bring Trennie on, who's coming from live from Memphis, and let's hear what Trennie has to say about young folk and this whole shifting of this political landscape. Trennie, how are you?
I'm doing great
Trennie,
today. How's everybody else doing?
Uh,
Doing
we're
well, sir.
weathering the
There's a
storm.
rainstorm here, so pardon that. Maybe I'll break up a little bit.
Mhm.
We do have a storm. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you. It's delayed, but we hear you. So keep talking. We got you. We're in a storm too, but keep talking.
The,
I guess.
the is changing, and it has. We do need to get more young adults and other adults involved in the political process. I mean, people can say they're sick and tired of politics, but politics is here to stay. As you are aware, and it was all over the world, where three state legislators were brought to the floor. Two of them were exposed for coming up and into the floor to voice their assault right that uh, which was not appropriate for that. But they were not unfit to fill their office, which that's what an expulsion is for. When you're being expelled, it's because you're not being eligible or able to fulfill that office. And they're able to do that. But we see the political landscape changing, where people are not just following the rules, they're just doing whatever they want to do based on the political structure, whichever party it is. So we have to we are not just in Tennessee, all over the country, stand up for what is right and what is best and what is just for all of our citizens. And this is a good example right here. Now, one of the great things is that from what happened in Tennessee, we see that it has given some people a larger landscape to voice their opinions and their viewpoints on. They thought it was going to be a small thing that happened in Nashville, but now we have people looking all over the world in regards to what's happening right here in the United States. But that's not enough. We have to get active and involved. We have to make sure that our young folks get active and involved to really make a difference, and not just in politics, but in our economic structure, in regards to how we do everything throughout our communities. Is very important for us to do that. And we need to make sure we do this thing in Florida, in Tennessee, in Georgia, in California, in Nevada, New York, where we have to really stand strong. And when I say we, I'm talking about people who are really out here in the middle class or the hard workers throughout the community, where they really stand strong. And just because, listen, this would happen. Looking to us then, when we go back to January 6th a couple of years ago, that was okay. All right. Now, is the insurrection, was that worth expulsing some people?
Yeah.
People in jail
Mm-hmm.
in bed
Uh-huh.
of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
So really, we are doing, everybody, and by doing that, we can make a difference. But we got to do it in our newspapers, in our businesses. As a matter of fact, we need more businesses, and we need to those businesses, and we need to build our
Mm-hmm.
economic structure in that way, where our young folks have something to stand on and not rely on the corporations and either party, because the parties have really pushed the African American community off to the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
We're not taken seriously by either party. We have to figure out a way and make sure we get what we want for our communities, for our people, for our elderly, for our children, for those who are working, for those who are in business, and make a difference that way.
Okay. Okay. Trennie, let me do this. I know Attorney Sandra has to leave. She has to teach a class. So Sandra, if you can comment, add to, or give us another a dichotomy of this political landscape and its casualties.
Yeah, so I am going to respond to a couple of the things that I heard. And the thing is, like, because of the flooding, my students are texting me like, I gotta go help my mama, I gotta go do this. I don't have an internet, so I might end up canceling class, but I'll know like in another 5 minutes if that's gonna happen. But I
Okay.
did want to respond to a couple of things, right? So Dr. Hankerson was talking about I want to first address the third party, that we should have a third party. I don't think that's what we need to do, right? Like, I'm not saying that we don't need to have another voice, like we shouldn't we need to leverage our voice more. I think we absolutely need to leverage our voice and our vote more. But I don't think a third party is really going to be what needs to happen right now in order for us to make the impact that we need to make. Because Black folks have a lot of power. They just haven't harnessed it, and they don't leverage it the way they should, and they just kind of give it away. But we need the right type of people to have that conversation, to let us all understand how powerful we are, and then we can do more than we're actually doing without us having to resort to third party, right? Because that'll really just take us out of the conversation, at least from my perspective, right? And then the other thing about, and Dr. Hankerson also talked about just being able, the single district thing being a problem. And in the city that I live in, it actually works for us, because I live in the city of Miramar, and we don't, you could just, we don't have single district. What we have is like, you could just vote like all over the place, and it works. Some places, the single district work for them. But what I always don't understand is that I think Black people live all over Fort Lauderdale, right? So I think some of the Black people that live in the neighborhoods that ain't real Black should go and vote too, right? Because what ends up happening is like all the Black people only want to run for that seat. I think it's C3 or whatever the number is, and then they don't go into any other races in Fort Lauderdale, even though they have addresses that's outside of that area, which I think, and I don't know why those folks don't want to run. So one of the things we also have to do is that we shouldn't, I think some people are afraid to run in those seats because they're like, oh no, that one's the Black seat where all the Black people run. But if you live in an address where there's a seat available, you should go and run, right? And then the biggest thing I want to say is that when people think about in terms of like Democrats and Republicans, what's really happening is like a class problem, right? We have and they always it's always being masqueraded as like a racial issue in the United States. We have a whole class problem in this country, and what folks don't want to accept is a lot of the Democrats that are in office are rich too, right? Like they rich, they got a whole bunch of money. Every now and then you get a regular one to come in there, and after they've been there about 3 terms, they rich too, right? And so you end up having folks who's really just gonna yes, they want to help you, but they not. It's very hard to get someone to help you at their expense, even though they claim to be a public servant. And then if you had them there for 50 years, please, right? Like they're not giving up that power for the benefit of folks that don't even fall in the same tax bracket as them anymore. So we need to stop getting tricked by the whole idea of like, folks are there to serve. Probably themselves, you know what I'm saying? Who voted them in. And in order for us to start accepting that reality, we have to understand that there's a class issue that's happening in the United States that's bigger than the racial problems that they talk about.
Sandra, when you say that class system, associating that class system with other countries, we don't want to deal with that because we're not from that country. We don't do that. So, but it's the truth, and so we're being hoodwinked by the truth to believe a forest, and so therefore we're confronted with that. So I agree with you on that, and I also anything that DeSantis wants to do, I'm going against it. And he wants to do away with the Democratic Party. So we got to be careful. So, yeah. Nadine.
Yes.
Dr. Hankerson.
Yes.
From economics and other issues, what do you see as Attorney Sandra was saying about not going along with this third party situation, if you would?
Well, I'm a number-based person, and based on the numbers, the Black people are still not at the level of ideology that they must be organized, whether they think they're Black or not. If the color of your skin is of a dark hue, you need to begin to have some understanding about how it reflects in terms of when you go to that voting booth. And we have not organized well enough under that. It was back in the Democratic Party. It was once upon a time in the Republican Party. It's just not there anymore. And while the Democratic Party in the South has just not spent the time or the money. They talk more than they do. And that talking has just is just not enough anymore. We need a little bit more than talk. We need to really truly understand how to organize, and that organized piece based on the assumption of color has to really be addressed. And most black folks don't want to talk about it. So if you fail not to want to talk about organizing, then you've got to figure out how to organize a base of people under some level of assumption to be able to get the numbers you need to win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hankerson, what are your thoughts there? You think it's fear, or because there were, like you said, at some point we had no choice. We had to unite. This was pre-integration, obviously, but what are some of the consequences that you think are impacting us not coming together, not uniting as a race of people?
Well, divide and conquer is there. And so when we began to look at all of the things, it's all that one-upmanship's game. And it's not just played with people of color, it's played with human beings, period.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, we have to know how it affects us because we don't have easy access to money. And that means the banking institutions, we won't go to our institutions to organize to become those banks because we've been taught not to trust one another, and we just got fear. I don't know what it is about black folks scared of white folks today. And they've been killing us for a long time. They just start killing us yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you want to get rid of guns in America, host a black gun show and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to educate enough black folk how to use guns in America and make sure their families are protected. I guarantee you they'll be passing some laws. We won't step out on those kind of bold initiatives in order to do what we need to do. That fear is just there. And so, or they're afraid that, well, if I step out there, ain't nobody going to be with me to do ABCD. Sometimes you got to stand out there and do it. Our land, wealth has something to do with land. Black folk won't stand up and fight. They are taking the land from us left and right. No legal lawsuits are being filed on behalf of the discrimination in this country where we used to go and litigate. Look at our NAACP. Look at all of our legal entities today that used to stand up to church and all that fight for us. They're not there anymore. More talk, no do.
Wow, Dr. Hankerson, you dropped the bomb there. Could it be? You mentioned some land situations as it pertains to the church. Could it be that the congregation does not live in that area anymore? That the congregation has moved out. They only come back when they do to attend church. Could that be a part of the problem? I don't know.
If you don't demand it of your preacher, then you can't demand that of your members. And so when they start there, so they are not there for community. They're there for their quote unquote, I'm there for my soul. That's so I'm almost like Jane Brown. I rather die on my feet than keep living on my knees. I'm about say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Black folks
there it is.
don't want to do the blackity black. Some things it's just about being black. It's what it is. You need to be able to talk about it, be proud about it, and really truly begin reaching out to the civics of our black children in helping them to understand the course that they are going to have to take. Because I'm telling you, we're running back up on that slavery. It's looking real good right now. That's the economic model. They got a jail model that looks good. It's a great economy, and they're building it brick by brick.
Trennie, what's going on in Tennessee? Now I see y'all making some noise now. So is there a lesson for us to learn here that we can share across the country?
Well, the lesson to learn is not to go in with your guard down and to make sure that you have the backing and support that you need throughout the entire process. Those two legislators who were expelled, of course, they've been laid However, now was the shooting that took in Nashville at a school. It was a predominantly white Christian private school, uh, uh, transgender shooting there. State came up to a voice opinion in regards to making sure they can regulate assault weapons or ban assault weapons or trying to get a hold on in regards to that, because in Tennessee, you do not have to have a permit in order to carry weapons and all of that in Tennessee. They changed the law recently. And so with that being said, though, this wasn't just a black thing. This is about the community as a whole. And I think a lot of times we get confused in regards to looking at the color, but it's all about not the color of people, but the green. And so we have to really look at that and really exercise having a good structure and plan in place so we can support what's best for our community. And yes, this is not done yet. You know, there's been a request for the Department of Justice to review and investigate this issue in regards to the expulsion. And so we'll see what happens from that. But it's much bigger and larger than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people should understand it, because, you know, you see the same thing with yours government legislation in Florida and Tennessee and Georgia. I mean, that and all this needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do what's best for the people, not for patients. What's best for all of us, and not just what's best for a few people at the top. And that's where we'll make a difference.
Brother Williams, I want to go ahead and interject here, because we saw, like you said, that issue that actually got these brothers fired up and got them, you know, eventually reinstated again was over a gun issue. But what do you see that will continue to fuel Black voters in the state of Tennessee as well as across this country? I mean, the gun laws, as our dear doctor was saying, it hadn't been an issue. It probably will be an issue if we all went down to the courthouse bearing arms, kind of like what we saw back in the 60s. But tell me something. What do you see happening in Tennessee or across the country that can galvanize folks that look like you and I to get active again, to get united toward politics?
That's a good question, and I wish I had the answer. Yeah, I wish I had the answer for everybody, but you know, I think that we just have to get more involved in the process of what's going on in our community. Stop sitting by the wayside, and the more we get involved, the more we can be at the table. It's not just enough for the 5 of us to be at the table and voice our opinion, but 5 times 5 times another 5 times another 5, and then we got thousands and then tens of thousands and millions of people involved in the process. I mean, there's enough people around where we can get involved, but we have to get involved in regards to this and not be afraid. You know, people are afraid of losing their jobs or losing everything in their communities and all of that if they speak out. But I believe that this is a people really willing to speak up, speak out. We can have what we need to have in our community, for sure.
Sister Sandra, I'm going to pose that same question to you and also Dr. Hankerson.
So what I want to say to that is that we actually really need to expand the conversation, right? And when I say expand it, we need to talk to other people, because like we're talking to each other and we kind of, you know, a lot of us know where, you know, we have that information, but the folks who really need to hear what it is that we're saying, we're not really creating that space. Either we're not doing it or the space doesn't exist in order for them to actually hear this conversation, right? So that's the biggest part of the problem, right? Is that we're talking to ourselves. We all know we get to intellectualize about it. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because we're all learning from each other, but we really need to find a way to get this conversation to like the average person that's just, you know, that that don't, maybe can't be on Facebook for like, an hour on a Thursday night to hear it. We have to create different spaces in order to have these conversations. And, they have like, public events all the time. Like every time I get flyers from all different cities in the county, and there's always a place where people are gathering, but they're not gathering to have this kind of talk. And even if you just kind of pepper it in, between the parties and the giveaways and the this and the Easter egg hunt, all of that, but we need to find a way to get these words out, get this message out to just your average person, the average voter. That's going to take a lot of grassroots, but there's enough events that I see taking place that somebody need to every now and then just kind of drop 3 sentences on them. You know what I mean? And then go from there and let that conversation build. At least give them something to think about. And then, we can build on that. But for us to just keep talking to each other, that's not the most. It does help because then, we're going to have a conversation with something else. But we need to find a way to get our words to a larger audience.
Dr. Hankerson?
Yes. Rooted in American politics is the racial factor. And a lot of times we run away from it. But I think we've got to spend some time for 2024 reaching out to our young people and providing that civic responsibilities. And what I'm trying to create right now in this community is Black is Civics for the ages of 13 to 22. And to begin over the next year and a half, hopefully we can increase the data bank on having young people come to the polls and make sure that we make a difference in the lives of having representatives that are going to be looking at making a change or just bringing that awareness and knowledge to the importance of voting.
And Dr. Hankerson, you titled that Black is Civics?
Yes.
All right. I like that. I like that.
That the whole education part, if we during the election time, we talk about let's register folks to vote. Let's register. Let's do this. It's like if a man is hungry and you give him a sandwich, you feed him for one day. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. The same thing applies when it comes to the process of election. The civics, the teaching part, we have to teach. And yes, Attorney Sandra, you're right. There are a lot of things happening all over the place, but we don't have that one common message. The same problem that the Democrats have with messaging, we're doing the same thing. We refuse to deal with it head on. I mean, there comes a time when you have to turn the tables over in the temple. It's all good, kumbaya. All that is real good. I mean, but there comes a time, and I'm gonna share this with you right fast, and I'm gonna let y'all move. Flying back to Fort Lauderdale from DC, there was a gentleman that sat in between my wife and I. He just happened to be a white guy who was a conservative. To make a long story short, when he said to my wife he was a conservative, she responded, "What is a conservative?" Then she said, "Well, I might well be a conservative." And then he turned to me. I was watching my camera. I was watching MSNBC News. And he said I should be watching Fox News. And I said, hold up. Now you're doing good dealing with my wife because she's a lot more gentle than I am. But when you come over here dealing with me, you better bring your A game because I got an A game. I don't knock what you're doing. I'm not going to knock it. All I know, if you come to me, you bring your A game because I'm going to bring mine. And my idea is to beat your ass. And he said, but I'm an old man. And I said, I'm gonna beat your old ass. It wasn't there's no time to play. It's all right. I'm not knocking you. It's just that when you bring it, you better be expected to get it. And we don't do that. We do not do that. A lot of us choose to succumb and to bow down as opposed to doing what Justin and Pearson doing, to stand up of what Patricia Hawkins is doing in the Florida House. When she tells them what she feels, we don't do that. So
Yeah.
That's enough.
So let's go to some of our,
mhm.
our viewing audience here. We've been getting some feedback. Mona Lisa has put some information here in the chat as well. She says events are cliquish and tend to see the same people. Many don't want to come to the streets. Too much talk. At this point, no one cares. We are losing the people.
Yeah, yeah.
And she also said too many distractions. So uh, are we losing the people?
Obviously, I'm sorry. Let me let them talk. My bad. What's your thought?
Trennie, it seems like there's some momentum going on in Tennessee right now, though. Are we losing the
Yes,
people?
yes. Well, we are losing. I mean, I'm excited to see the younger people battle things that don't really
Uh-uh.
matter, and it begins to look politics as usual. So we are losing people in that. However, in the midst of losing, then people are frustrated. They get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Then they jump back in. So we want to get back on the folks who are sick and tired of being sick and tired, so they can get back in and fight this battle with everybody else.
But even when they sick and tired of being sick and tired, you still got to give them a reason to come and vote for you. You
Yeah,
still
you
got to
got
do
to.
that, because even if they sick and tired, if they like you, how you better, you got to tell me what you about to do that's gonna be different from the people that I'm already sick of, right? And that's kind of not, that's what's not happening, because even just in this last election cycle, at least I know in Florida, even the grassroots folks was sick of the politicians. You know, can you imagine like the people who are like about this voting life? You know what I'm saying? They voted every election, every time. They will go outside for the whole early voting period and be out there for 12 hours for
Yeah,
candidates for no money. You understand?
yeah,
And they were like sick of the politician. That's like if these clowns say like one
yeah.
more thing. So if you get in like the super voters, like the diehards who will ride for you for free to
Yes.
be sick of you, you know, ain't nobody about to leave a house to go stand in no line to go do nothing for you. And that's what's happening. So even when people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, you got to give them a reason to come out there to step to just to move 1 inch for you, right? And that wasn't happening. And the other thing that you know, if folks go back to really engage in like grassroots organizations, they're going to get people. What was happening is like these folks got caught up in these algorithms again, right? They letting these people with these freaking computers tell them what the numbers say they need to do, right? But you can't, you know, you still got to come and talk to people, right? You know what I mean? Black folks like, don't just be coming over here. Nah. You got to come, make me feel welcome. You got to acknowledge me. There's a way that you deal with certain communities. My parents are Haitian. There's a way you got to deal with the Haitian community. If you gonna put them in a number system, you gonna lose
You're
every time
losing
because
every
they don't
time.
know what you
Every
do.
time.
Like they don't know them rules. That's not the game they play. So
Yeah.
you can come up with your numbers, but that's not gonna get it. You gotta come in with the people. So there's a way to get folks back, but you gotta go. You gotta get regular folks to go get them back,
Yeah.
not these algorithm thoughts. That's not gonna do it. You know?
Right. And attorney, you know, what is wrong with holding a person's hand and walking them through the process? What's wrong with having a barbecue or a fish fry on the day it's time to vote? What's
Oh,
wrong with feeding the what's wrong with that? Why can't we understand we ain't all that y'all perplex what you plan to be?
But that's because the people who they pay all
that's the
this
problem
money
we got.
to, whether they win or lose, is gonna tell them don't do that because they want a percentage of the money that you raise, right? Because these consultants get paid no matter if you win or lose. So a lot of them what they focus on is fundraising because they're gonna get a percentage of your money whether you win or lose. They don't care. They like they, for real, they truly don't care because if their value depended on whether or not they were winning races, then it would matter. But they get paid whether they win or lose. They get their name on a list, so they get recycled. You know, when you gotta get one, people are like, well, go get him. He raised $88 million or whatever. So they go get him, and they don't care. So they don't want you spending no money on no fish fry or no t-shirts or no stuff that people really want because you know They they got friends in radio, they got friends in television, they got friends that do research, that they gonna send big checks to, instead of having a fish fry, like you said, Mr. Henry.
But Brother Henry, it's been said that politics is local, and politics should be a people's game.
That's right.
Obviously, that has become a cliquish game. But listen, we got a comment here from Aretha Wimberly, and she's talking about these local politicians with the weather out here, and she's saying with these streets being flooded, somebody, we got to hold some of these people accountable. Can we put that chat up on the screen? When their streets are flooded, tell the truth about the failures of the local government and who we hold accountable. Absolutely. They've been talking about tying a lot of these storm drains into the lake, but it hadn't been done, and we see the consequences.
And David, you know something? the flooding and the backwash from the flooding, the sewage went through and went out to the Isles, the rich parts of Las Olas, and they had sewage all around their big yachts and stuff. Now all of a sudden, we got a problem. There's a problem. Hell, it's been a problem. So they were spending hours at night transporting sewage back and forth, trying not to allow black folks shit to wind up there in their waterways. So you see, the shit has to hit the fan before something happens.
And the other part of that too, Brother Henry, the other part of that too is that again with this Democratic messaging. Remember that infrastructure bill that Joe Biden was trying to get these people to go to if you explain it in terms of, like, let me tell you, if you don't support infrastructure, your house gonna get flooded. Your car you're gonna be looking out the window at the roof of your house surrounded by water. You know what I mean? You're gonna have images like y'all
can't flush your toilet.
You can't flush the
car in the middle of the highway if you don't pay attention to infrastructure. And that's the way you need to give that messaging. But they're making it seem like, oh no, they're trying to spend $100 billion. Don't talk about it in terms of money. Explain it into the way that people can see it. Remember when it rained too much and you couldn't walk outside, or you were stuck in your house all day because the water was waist deep? That's why you need infrastructure. That's how they need to explain it. So some of that is local, but a lot of that is federal. And these folks didn't explain that in that way.
Yeah, we can call defecation a whole lot of other words, and I just chose to use that one. So I'm gonna wind it back. And also, when I was talking about the fact that you bring your A game and I bring mine, there comes a time when you have to meet a person where they are, not taking anything from anybody, not discounting anything. So we are trying to involve and engage people in conversation so they can understand what's really happening. And Dr. Hankerson, you from your platforms, you've been trying to do this for a long time. So what's
Well, I think that we need a plan, and there are going to the streets is important. And they're going to always be cliques because people have relationships, and relationships is what drives human need. So we have to begin to, find those people in community and create a plan and understand the structure in which to go after the money in order to fix it. Too often we have no idea. We have great ideas on what we want, but we have not thought about how we need to plan in order to get access to the money. You've got to have access to what it is that you need in order to find solutions to the problem.
Absolutely. Guys, we are coming now close to the top of the hour. I mean, this has been a power-packed conversation. Brother Henry, before we get out of here, any closing questions that you want to share with our guests or ask our guests before we prepare to wrap this up?
The questions that I have, I'm sure we because we know who's in the foxhole with us, and so there's no discourse between us. but I would ask, how do we get that young person, that the person who has given up, um, and the one who feels that they have no vested interest? How do we bring them back, or how do we get to them? That's the question.
Well, we got to get out there. We got to be a part of the streets. We need to get out, be a part of the streets. We've got to begin putting a plan together. I mean, everybody is not going to be everything to everybody. So if we can decide this is what we're going to work on with this group of people, let's organize it. Let's find out the structure in which we can go after the revenue to make it happen and apply it to that. Because too often folks get in these positions and they steal rather than giving it to who it is intended to be for, and that it works to show our people that it can be done. We have to know how to access these banking, and what we can't access from the bank, we have to begin to understand how to create them. How do we get money from these government and municipal sources in order to do what we need to do locally, state, and federal? Those are the real answers. We've got to be able to attack the structures to make sure that we have it in order to fix what our issues are.
Mhm.
So when we begin to put a plan, and you're gonna have more than one plan, but we
Mhm.
do need a plan. And how are we going to activate that plan in order to move it forward? And so we have to talk to the street. And the street has to tell us. They may not know how to fix it, but they truly can tell us what the problems, and those who have the capacity and the skill, we have to step forward and do what we can in order to fix it without being self-indulged. It just can't be about you. It's got to be about the greater good.
Mhm. And Dr. Hankerson, something just that I heard you say, I just want to paraphrase it. It sounds like you're saying financial transparency as well with that. We have to make sure
Absolutely.
we're accountable for the dollars and making
For
sure
the
they're being
money.
well spent.
Absolutely.
Counselor?
I was listening. I heard that financial transparency, and I'm just like, they gonna make it look like whatever you want it to look like, though. So,
Numbers don't lie.
listen. I took an accounting class in business school, and all I kept thinking, I was like, yeah, I don't want to know this because y'all going to jail. Like y'all are going to jail because they make those balance sheets say whatever they wanted to say, right? So even when we talk about transparency, listen. What you want it to look like, I got you, right? That's what it is. So I don't know how transparent. If the person has made a decision and committed to mess with the money, part of they gonna make it look like what it want to look like.
No,
So in
we
terms
want
of
the people that receive the money to stand up, because we got to spend money with our folks. We got to spend the money with the black
they gonna look like they
newspaper.
spent it too.
Yeah, but we got to be accountable though. I hear you though. They can make numbers lie. You're right. Go ahead.
Listen, I saw that account. I was like, what happened to the money? They're like, well, it's in the balance sheet. I was like, okay, it's a loss of the depreciation, all this nonsense they say. So they're gonna find a way to make it look like however you want it to look like. But what we need to have is really people who really are there to serve and really do want to see that community get better. And there are some folks like that, right? But we can't get caught up with the ones that got, all the money, because it's, there's folks that, they make sure everybody gets some, and then those people make sure people vote for them. So we really need to focus on folks who really want to come in and serve. But for me, we also need to spend a lot more time listening, right? So, because oftentimes when folks go, especially the ones who want to run for office, or the ones who, we think we know everything, we always out there telling people what they need to do, right? They're like, but you don't know me, right? Like, you really don't know me. How you going to tell me what I need? So we need to spend a little bit more time, if not a lot more time, listening to what it is that made that person not want to go vote, really what their issue is, and then respond to that. right? Because we got a lot of information, right? But before we walk in the room and start talking, we should give them an opportunity to say, listen, tell me what it is that makes you so frustrated that you rather take the risk that we're going to have a super majority in Tallahassee than you go outside and vote, right? Explain that. So when we have these meetings and these town halls or whatever we call it, I think those folks, instead of coming out there telling these people what they just did and all that, they need to listen to what it is that the people wanted them to do, what they need them to do, and then respond in that way. And I think that's like the stepping stone for us to be moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Brother Williams? I think we got you back, Brother Williams. Can you hear us?
Yes, typically yes, can you?
Yeah.
Can you hear?
You're coming in and out, Trennie.
I don't know if you.
Okay.
Not. All right.
Okay.
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 Seems like we lost
right.
Brother Trennie.
Yeah.
Well, Doc.
Okay. Yeah. Well, go ahead. Let me see if I can.
I'm just saying, as always, we when we have these guests on, we know it's going to be a power-packed show. I'm hearing so many things, listening and organizing and finding those committed people and hitting the streets. Something we know that is a recipe for success when it comes to getting the right people in office. So, I'm on board with all of the above, but I want to just leave it here to my dear brother, Bobby R. Sr., Bobby R. Henry Sr.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. Black folk, throughout our history, we have overcome situations that others couldn't do. And in doing that, we develop a DNA that would allow us to continue. But the DNA that we develop, what we're doing now is we're keeping it to ourselves. We are passing on something that was simulated. Our DNA has been transposed into an idea created by somebody else. And for us to move from where we are to where we need to be, we have to come together. We have to come back and accept all of that we're fearful of. Those of us who split verbs, and those of us who perhaps have gold teeth in our mouth, those of us who did not go to college, those of us who live from paycheck to paycheck, even those who have found success, we have to bring all that back because that's where we started from. It's the dirt in the pot that makes the flower grow. And because a rose is in a sewer filled with feces, it doesn't mean that rose has to stay in there. Its stems and its roots go so deep, they grow beneath the sewage and the feces. And it's on a stem that its head stands beyond it. So it's never really in it. And until we realize that it's all of us, then we're going to be in the same spot we're in, listening to DeSantis, listening to them people in Tennessee who said, boy, it ain't your time yet. Or even Marjorie Taylor Greene or those other folk. We can no longer listen to them. We have to come together and write our own narrative. So I appreciate the conversation, the thoughts, and Trennie, we couldn't hear you clearly all the way, but we got some of the things you were saying. So we got to have you back when there's no storms on the horizon. So good night, everybody.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much. And we continue to appreciate
and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Always a pleasure.